Hi. What's up, gamers? We're back. Chapter 8. Higurashi? Nakakaro ni kai? Which is the answer arcs. Matsuribayashi. Which is like... I don't know what it is in the English version. But... okay. Thank you! Hydrate. Oh wait. I'm using a new model today. Just seeing how it works. Yeah, I have hand motions now, which is kind of nuts. Hi! Thank you! I appreciate it! Okay. 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 Starting. This background is very new because Higurashi doesn't really use this background much. So Kazum, yeah, I have peach water, so that's good. But this is my first time using the model, and it looks like my mouth motions are real off, but you know, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We're just gonna start then. We don't need to drink water when we have Higurashi. Great, now you guys are gonna see freaking everything. Every time I scratch my head. Oh my gosh. It's literally crazy. Is that anime? Yeah. It's, yeah. It's that. But it's, I don't know if I would recommend jumping into it here. I'll be completely honest. But, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. You'll get the gist of it. And, yep. I guess I should have checked the mouth rigging before. But you'll deal with it, right? I'm be talking through our mind, you know. Okay. Oh god. Last we heard... oh wait. Yeah, okay. Last we heard virus and disease and worms in people's skin, but like for real. So we have Matsuribayashi. At least let it end with a blissful dream. Festival accompanying chapter. The riddle you have been entrusted with solving now finally becomes unraveled. What must be done to stop the chain? And what will happen in the ultimate end? The showdown between the conclusion you reached and the one I reached. There is no difficulty. You should understand that now. Oh my gosh. There never was a difficulty. There never was one. Start. And I still don't know what that means. That has been there. Everyone is entitled to happiness. The difficult part is accepting that. Everyone is entitled to happiness. The difficult part is fulfilling that. I too am entitled to happiness. The difficult part is working out a compromise. I don't know. It's a work of fiction, any resemblance, yeah, blah, 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 blah. The difficulty was the friends we made. Yeah. Oh, it's been so long. Okay. Study was filled with piles of books and papers. In that study, there was a full-figured old man writing something at his desk in utmost concentration. There was also a little girl sorting out papers on the carpet. She almost looked as though she was playing with them, but the serious expression she was wearing made it clear she wasn't. Grandpa? I'm done sorting them out. Thank you. Let's see what happened. Look, there are lots of people with the same symptoms. It's way higher than the national average. That's exactly what I expected. There's an intriguing treatise over here too. It discusses psychosurgery and civilization. It also predicts the existence of parasites that inhabit the frontal lobe. Ew! It's freaking disgusting. Frontal lobe is what causes emotion. Okay, that's very... no. That's not correct at all, but... That's right! No, it's not. No, it's not. Emotions aren't created by the heart. They're just side effects of chemicals secreted by the organ known as the brain. If parasites capable of acting on that organ did exist and spread to create a colony, then that colony's thoughts would be unified. So parasites? The cause of the spread of ideology? When ideologies clash, is that because different parasites are competing to expand their habitat? Okay, that's getting crazy. That, or to expand religion, to expand national borders, or to expand a race? It's hypothesized that our differing cultural communities and their conflict are the result of parasites influencing human thoughts. The only parasite I know of is the cat one that makes you love cats. That's it. There are people in other countries who think the same thing as you, Grandpa. Of course there are. There are countless parasites on this earth. It's well known that some coexist with their hosts and some control their hosts. We've also discovered plenty of parasites that infect humans. Yet despite that, we adamantly deny the possibility that parasites could infect humans and control their hosts. Even the hypothesis of such a thing. Why do you think that is? Humans aren't special in any way. Because that hypothesis would also mean changing our view to see the spread of ideologies from the perspective of epidemiology. It conflicts with ideology. If conflicts in ideology can be resolved through debate, then they're peaceful. But if those conflicts occur I can't say that freaking word. Epidemically, they become frightening. And if one were to treat bad thoughts or the spread of culture as an epidemic, think about the Black Plague in Europe during the Middle Ages. A violent infectious disease spread. They forced infected people into hospitals and didn't release them until they completely recovered. Some even died in those hospitals. They burned their corpses. They confiscated and burned everything those patients touched for fear the plague infected it. They even suspected families of infection and forced them into hospitals. So they'd hospitalize healthy people over individual ideas? No. That's not it. My epic brainworm versus their cringe parasite. That's true, that's true. Replace an idea with a disease. The rest is the same. Patients won't be released until they completely recover. People burn everything that may have been touched by the patient. They force the patient's family to go into the hospital. People are free to think what they will, right? Thoughts aren't pests. If an idea was created by parasites, it would be exactly the same as a plague. In other words, an idea is like an incurable epidemic. Sometimes. Like, I would say, imagine the Tide Pod eating thing, right? That was a plague. The Tide Pod worm infected people and made them ingest Tide Pods. I don't know if I completely agree with what they're saying, but... So you mean anyone with a different idea is treated like they have a disease? True. That's right. We bring this to its logical conclusion. Parasites could be responsible for mass murders of people belonging to different races or religions. This can be seen as justifying genocide. Therefore, talking about parasites in brains has been taboo since the war. Really? This is the first time I'm hearing about World War II being caused by a parasite. Or brainworm. What does taboo mean? Okay, how old is this freaking girl that's talking to her grandpa? Because he should not be saying all these things to like a 12-year-old, right? She should know what taboo means if she's an adult. It means something people shouldn't get involved with. That's why nobody researches these things. Nobody even remembers anything about parasites that live in the brain. They assume that parasites which control humans simply don't exist. That's almost funny. How can they prove something doesn't exist? That's just impossible. Exactly. Proving that the devil exists is easy. You just have to show him to someone. But you can't prove he doesn't exist. You can't show somebody something that doesn't exist. That's true. It's almost as if the parasites in the brain are controlling people so they can keep their own existence a secret. That's like Animorphs. Me and my grandfather shared a happy laugh together. What? How is this a happy conversation? Wait. Are we the lady that has caused the problems as an adult and she's a child and this is a flashback? That might be. Humans are simply another animal in this natural world. We might be at the top of the food chain, but it's foolish to think we are superior to others. Humans can be controlled by parasites. Just because the existence of such a parasite hasn't been proven doesn't mean they don't exist. They exist. I know they do. Because I'm infected. That's where this is going, right? That's happened before in the scientific world, right? That's right. Not all scientists are recognized for their work while they're alive. There are many who are ridiculed that couldn't prove their theories to be true. But, Grandpa, I hope your theory will be recognized before you die. Otherwise, it would be so sad. Don't worry. God doesn't ignore people who work hard. Okay. I don't think the parasite thing is real, but it might be real in universe. I've never heard of it, but I could believe it would exist, you know? But I feel like if people thought that right after World War II, we'd hear about it. So, and I haven't heard about it, so I'm going to assume that it doesn't exist, but who knows? Hard work always pays off in the end. Well, when will that happen? Nobody knows when God is going to descend from heaven. It's like you never know when you'll be robbed. What? Okay. So we've all had to be alert and ready so we don't miss our chance. That was something my grandfather said all the time. Oh, bye! Have fun with ice cream. I also had ice cream earlier, so... I had... Well, it was vanilla, but then I turned it into chocolate, and then I put a mint chip in it, so... Turned into chocolate chip. Chocolate mint chip. It's pretty good. Nobody knows when efforts will bear fruit, but it will happen one day. That's why you must always work hard, so you have no regrets when the time comes. Your efforts will bear fruit someday. That's what he meant. But is it going to happen before you die? Even though there are so many scientists whose work weren't recognized while they were alive. Such a cruel thing to say. But I didn't mean to be cruel. I had seen how hard my grandfather had been working. I also knew that he wouldn't live forever. Just wanted his work to gain recognition before he died. Do you know of the resurrection of Jesus Christ? What are we even talking about? Yeah? He was crucified and resurrected after 3 days. You told me about it. How do you think Jesus was resurrected? Didn't he just get up as if he were waking in the morning? He was buried after his execution, so his body was in the ground. No, wasn't it like behind a tomb and he opened the tomb? Because like the image that I see in my head is like there's a hill and it's buried in the hill from like the side, so it has like a door. That's what I saw. Did he break open the tombstone and crawl out like a zombie? Haha, no. That wouldn't be called a resurrection. The sinners who killed Jesus imagined exactly the same thing. Jesus predicted just before he was executed that he would come back to life after 3 days. The sinners buried Jesus, sealed the tomb, and posted guards to watch over it. What Jesus meant wasn't that he would resurrect physically, and his teachings would be resurrected. For 3 days, Jesus' teachings were resurrected and people regained their belief. The hearts of those who wanted to be shown the proper way revived his teachings. That's what the resurrection of Jesus is all about. Really? This is very new information to me. He came back to life in the hearts of his believers. Jesus doesn't exist physically on this earth, but he exists in people's hearts. Oh, that's actually really nice. Oh my god. In other words, that's when Jesus became an existence superior to humans. Jesus is a brainworm. The real Jesus is the friends we made along the way. True. Even if it's after the author's death, as long as his work receives a fair evaluation, it will live again as a great achievement. Even if my body is gone by then, my life will return and receive recognition. Does that mean you'll become God? Just like Jesus did? Indeed. My research will be recognized for what it is someday. It's when I will become a god. That's why I'm not in a rush to achieve that recognition. I don't know when that day will come. God doesn't know that either. But that day will come. That's why I need to continue to work as hard as I can. So I can become a god. That's a little odd, isn't it? It was very sad to hear my grandfather say his life would end one day. He wasn't ill, and he didn't have only a few years left to live. But, set next to the average lifespan, his remaining years didn't look like much. The only person left in my life was my grandfather. But I didn't even want to consider what it would be like with him gone. Grandfather must have remembered that I didn't like to talk about that subject. With a tender smile, he gently patted my head. Of course, I want my research to be recognized before I die. I will do my best. Yep. I'll do my best to help you too. Purposefully didn't mention the before you die part. I caught myself before I said it. Thank you. That makes me very happy to hear. Grandfather smiled in satisfaction. His research wasn't exactly outrageous. He wasn't trying to uncover the mysteries of the universe. He was only searching for the possibility that parasites could be responsible for human behavior. Nothing more than that. I think we have kind of figured that out a little bit. So sometimes brainworms do exist and sometimes are responsible. But not all the time. Nothing outrageous. The real parasites were the friends. Are you just saying this over? It really wasn't a wild idea. We even had some leads. Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone City, XX Prefecture. The villagers there are possessed by a powerful homesickness. When they are unable to return, they allegedly behave abnormally, as if they are cursed. There are also some bizarre rules in place in the village based on their belief system. While he was working in the military, but during the war, my grandfather noticed similarities between the people in Hinamizawa and assumed that some kind of existence was responsible for their odd behavior. He had been researching it ever since then. Maybe the friends we made along the way were the friends we made along the way. That's absurd. That's not real. In the middle of the 20th century, numerous strange diseases were discovered all over Japan. Most of them were caused by infectious parasites. People started to pay attention to this forgotten field of study. Grandfather's research was simply one of those investigations into such diseases. Therefore, he believed it would be published amongst other research and attain recognition soon. But if his research didn't bear fruit before his death, I wanted to continue it. I wanted to continue his research. Grandfather taught me, resurrection isn't something that happens physically. It's when your life's work is appreciated. That's what he meant by resurrection. That's when he'll become a god. So when my grandfather dies, he'll still be with me forever. I wouldn't have to be alone ever again. I'll always be with my grandpa. Our works will gain recognition, and we will both become gods, gaining eternal peace. I don't care how sad of a backstory she has. I don't care. She's still horrible and evil. I will make my grandfather into a god. I will become a god. Therefore, we will be granted eternity. We'll be together forever and ever. Scary. Women will literally become god before going to therapy. No, I don't think so. What's happening now? He's looking at the key on the keychain. The key was labeled Hen House. The lock Eriko was trying to open didn't belong to that door. It should have opened effortlessly. At least that's what was supposed to happen. But it didn't open. I noticed beads of sweat forming on Eriko's forehead. She was the one who came up with this idea. Eriko was starting to panic, and the rest of us started to panic too. This only opens the hen house. Let's stop. Let's go back. Shh. We're supposed to be cleaning out the hen house. They found us back here. They found out why we were here and why we were trying to open up the lock to the back door. And all 4 of us were sure to be sentenced to splayed piggy. Don't panic, Eriko. That key opens this lock, right? You've already tried it, right? Will you shut up for a minute? This is the right key. It's just hard to open, that's all. She was almost shrieking. Our hearts were pounding loudly. It was as though the sound of our heartbeats was echoing throughout the hallway. And at that point, we heard footsteps that didn't belong to a child. Shh! Somebody's coming! 3 of us held our breath, but Eriko didn't hear it. She kept fussing with the lock and the key, as if everything would be okay if she could just open the lock. Eriko, somebody's coming! Be quiet! I know this is the right key, I'm not dreaming. I already tried it and opened it. Come on, why isn't it working? When this lock is open, we can be happy and we can say goodbye to this hell. Eriko, someone's coming! What? What? My father and mother died. I don't know exactly how old they were. I was too young to remember. They went shopping without me, and that must be why they were punished. It was a train accident. What a terrible disaster. A lot of people died in that incident. And my father was one of the lucky ones. He was still alive when he arrived in the hospital, so he was able to share his final words with me. My mother died instantly. Daddy! 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 I didn't want to admit this person I could hardly recognize was— oh, that's rough. I called out to him. I hoped that it was someone else instead. But, unfortunately, it was my father. Maybe I shouldn't have woken him. So when I woke him up, he was reminded of the miserable agony he had forgotten. Oh, Daddy! 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 He tried to move his right arm so he could pat my head, but his arm was wrapped in bandages, and his hand was no longer there. Couldn't find his hand anywhere on the bed. I only had scary memories of his right hand. Main job was to slap me when I did something bad. Oh! I never wished it to be gone. Besides, that hand also patted my head, even though that only happened a few times. It was a big, warm hand, and it stroked my head very gently. No matter what good deeds I did, it could no longer rub my head. No. His hand was the least of his worries. He had to go into emergency surgery. The doctors already warned me that the chances of him surviving was very low. If I was allowed to see him, regardless of his condition, not only could he no longer rub my head, he might be gone forever. Daddy, this surgery will make you better, right? Daddy, you'll get better, right? Right? Oh, listen carefully. Your daddy might not make it. Even if I die, you have to be strong, okay? No, you'll get better. The doctor is going to make you better. So you're not going to die? He was stubborn and old-fashioned. He was a stubborn and old-fashioned father. I believe endurance was a virtue, and he never complained about anything. So I couldn't believe he actually said he might not make it. I tried desperately to deny his words. Even that wish wouldn't prolong his life. My father, knowing his time was limited, tried to tell me some important things. But I interrupted his efforts by crying like a baby. I just wanted him to slap me. Oh. Just like he used to every time I cried like a baby. But he would never slap me again. Listen well. Mother and I both lost all of our family in the war. So, after I'm dead, there won't be anyone left to take care of you. Huh? You don't understand. When most of what your parent does is hit you, or if that's what all you remember, that is what their love is to you. So it becomes like a comforting thing. So that means that they care about you when they do that. you know, it becomes like a really messed up connection. But, you know. He didn't need to tell me that. My parents used to tell me that all the time, so I was aware of that fact. In other words, my father was the only relative I had left in this entire world. If I die, you can count on Dr. Takano. Dr. Hifumi Takano. Can you say it? Hifumi Takano. That's right. Dr. Hifumi Takano is my former teacher. He will help you. Daddy. Many doctors came into the room in a hurry. Wanted to tell me something else. The doctor stopped him from talking, so I wasn't able to hear him. I was kicked out of the room. I didn't know what to do. Nobody told me how my father was doing, or when the surgery was going to start. Nobody told me. That was going to be the last conversation I ever had with my father. I think I asked people at the government office about Dr. Takano. They'd asked me if I knew his phone number. I said I didn't, and they didn't ask me anything further. Sometimes they told me they'd look into it, but nothing led to anything. Couldn't find me a guardian, so I ended up going to an orphanage. At the time, there were plenty of orphans from the war, so although there were many orphanages around, they were all full. There were also some orphanages run by civilians. I was sent to one of those civilian orphanages. Yeah. There was no profit to be had in taking an orphan in the first place. So I thought, those civilians who were running orphanages must have been very good people. I was sure they hoped that the children would grow in this loving environment and enter into society with a sense of gratitude. But reality isn't so kind. How many children in this world can actually express their gratitude towards their parents in the first place? Children are supposed to be nurtured by their parents' love. Therefore, when that environment is destroyed, their hearts are wounded. Every child has his or her own personality. Receiving affection doesn't guarantee that a child will become someone angelic. Not everyone's heart can be healed. That's why there were some problem kids at the orphanages. Maybe I shouldn't call them problem kids, though. Sadness and despair of losing their parents, and the anger at having to hide such feelings filled those kids' hearts. Spending time individually with the children could have solved their problems. But at the orphanage where I was, none of the staff members even tried to spend time with them or put an effort to understand them. All they could do was make sure that the kids followed the rules. Therefore, they could only see the children's emotional pleas for help as problems. In this world, nobody expresses love without expecting something in return. The person who founded that orphanage was expecting something in return as well. No. He wanted the children to appreciate him. That was why such a faint dream was destroyed by cruel reality. Children called the orphanage a prison, and nobody appreciated the staff at all. In fact, all they did was complain. That made the staff slowly realize that love alone couldn't run a facility like that. Just like how the children called it a prison, staff started to recognize the facility as a prison too. It was a chain reaction resulting from mistrust on both sides. Staff bound the children with the rules so they could suppress problem behavior. There was a framed picture of the founder of this orphanage, but I've never seen him in person. Was he satisfied with the fact that he put his own money into this social service? Maybe he finally realized his dream of being surrounded by angelic children and being celebrated for what he did was simply that, a dream. I don't know. There's one thing I'm certain of. Such a dream didn't exist at this orphanage. There were so many rules and several plausible standards outlined for us. The most valued one was silence. Children's chatter tend to increase each other's volume, just like mics drawing closer. Sometimes that leads to fights and the disturbance of order. The children were forbidden from speaking with each other. Oh, that's so bad! With those disallowed, they must have thought things would go smoothly. However, I think I always heard people's voices at the orphanage. There are two kinds of voices. One was the staff yelling, the other were children crying. We're not allowed to walk around inside of the orphanage freely, so we never knew who it was that was crying. One time, along with the crying and yelling, we heard the noise of metallic things being smashed against each other. We knew it was some kind of punishment, but there was no way for us to even imagine what it was. We trembled, pretended we didn't hear anything, kept working on our assignments. One of my roommates told me it was the casket punishment, but she didn't tell me any further, and I didn't want to know either. Even if we behaved exactly the same way as yesterday, if the staff were in a bad mood, they might pick on us. So, even if I didn't want to know, I might suddenly find out what the casket punishment is one day. Footsteps of a staff member were getting closer. We noticed them, so we straightened our backs and pretended we were studying hard. It's more important that the staff saw us doing so than us actually getting any work done. I noticed the girl next to me was falling asleep, so I poked her with my elbow. She noticed my signal and straightened her back like the other children. It was almost evening. It was the hardest time for us to keep ourselves awake, and the most dangerous time. The door to our room opened, and a mean-looking man showed up. Then he looked around to make sure none of us were falling asleep. And if we were actually studying hard, he thought we were asleep, we were out. That's why we had to make sure we appeared to be studying very hard. The man walked around our desks. I hoped he would just walk by me. That's what we all prayed, as we kept working on our homework. The more we pretended to study hard, the more we could hear the sound of metal objects. The sound of metal objects crashing into each other, along with screams. Couldn't even imagine what the poor subject of that punishment was going through. Maybe there was something even worse than the casket punishment. To erase such fears, we tried to concentrate even harder on our work. We kept working. The metal sounds and the screams went on forever. I think things sucked back then. Just in general. I mean, things probably still suck now, in terms of, like, how children are treated in orphanages and things. But I think it was way worse back then, because they could get away with a lot worse. But, the only time we were allowed to exchange words with our roommates was right after turning the lights off to go to bed. Being located in the middle of the mountains, the orphanages was very quiet at night. For making sure the staff members were far enough from our rooms, we enjoyed talking amongst ourselves. That was the only leisure time allowed to us. But it wasn't anything nice like enjoying pleasant conversation. Why? Because we mostly talked about others behind their backs. We spoke of things like, that member of staff is only strict or unfair or malicious towards this person, and so on. We just repeated those topics forever, until someone couldn't keep themselves awake anymore. We even discussed how we could get back at the staff. We took revenge on all of them in our imagination. Some kids even started to cry when talking about it, difficult as it was for us. Although the subjects we spoke of were negative, talking about them was the only way to vent our frustration. Even though we felt despair about tomorrow, we were able to fall asleep. But sometimes, a different subject popped up. It was about the Yurigaoka House of Love and Mercy on the side of the river. Yeah, over there, I hear they get not only nap time, but snack time too. Plus, their president is a very nice person. The House of Love and Mercy was a privately run orphanage, just like the one I was at. But it was a very kind facility, unlike ours. It seemed like a fantasy land compared to our current environment. A few years before, when this place was a lot worse, few children tried to escape. It was hard to believe. There was a time when this orphanage was even worse to live at. Supposedly, 3 or 4 people tried to escape. I don't know the exact number, though. They headed to the House of Love and Mercy. Their escape was a success, except for one unlucky child, able to get to the property of the House of Love and Mercy. I guess the staff couldn't follow them into the other orphanage's property. In other words, the other facility's property had to be out of their jurisdiction. Whoa, little glitch, but staff were frustrated that kids got away from them, and they dragged the one they caught back here. I'm sure they wanted to bring back the others who got away from them too. I'm certain the staff were determined not to let a single one escape. It was easy to see that determination in the obstinate way they locked the place up after that event. They were never able to bring back the ones that got away. No matter how much the staff were mortified, they couldn't reclaim the children and punish them. In other words, if you could make it to the house of love and mercy, then you could escape the evil clutches of this hell. On the other hand, the one they caught went through such misery afterwards. Yet the exact details of how he was punished were never passed down. All that remained were ominous phrases left by those who knew him at the time. The drowned ducky, the mashed caterpillar, the splayed piggy. Can't even imagine what kind of punishments they were. House of Love and Mercy right next to the House of Hate and Wrath. True. That's actually what it is though, yeah. The only thing I can say is that those punishments were supposed to be far more harsh than the casket punishment, which is one of the most cruel punishment I knew of the time. I can only imagine how horrible those punishments were from their ominous names. After that, the captured kid's wish came true, and he was able to leave the orphanage. Was he able to leave this orphanage safely and enjoy his freedom while breathing in fresh air under the blue sky? Well, according to rumors, that wasn't what happened at all. While he was playing in the boiler room, he slipped and fell, injured his brain, and died. What do you mean he injured his brain? You mean he hit his head? How do you injure your brain? The children were instructed not to go into the boiler room after that incident. Everyone knew the boiler room was always locked. So everyone knew he was killed. And not just that. He was killed after being tortured. He was killed to teach the other children that they would face hell on earth if they tried to escape. Yet those who faced that risk and made it out obtained ordinary, average lives full of love and mercy's namesake, which were far better conditions than we lived in here. Maybe the house of love and mercy was really heaven. Maybe all the orphanages are pretty much the same. But compared to my orphanage, I bet anything else would have been better. Even if someone escaped successfully, the police would catch him. Then he'd be sent back to the orphanage. Which would be pretty much the same thing as being killed. However, if he could reach the house of love and mercy, they'd take him in. They wouldn't send him back. By talking about escaping to the house of love and mercy, we were trying to forget how cruel reality was to us. Then one day, the leader of our group, Eriko, said to us quietly, "Would you try to escape? If you had a chance to?" Who didn't want to escape from here? It was a rather foolish question, but that wasn't what she meant. There was a chance to escape. Would you take that chance, knowing what you had to go through if we got caught? That was what she meant. Not one of us could answer immediately. The previous escape incident was a total success. We might have thought differently. But after that, the orphanage had tightened up security to prevent runaways. All the doors and windows were locked heavily, and it wouldn't be at all easy to get out. Even if another group escape was planned, success rate would be very low. 3 escaped and 1 was caught before. Maybe 2 would be caught next time. No, maybe everyone would be. If I could, I'd want to escape. But the House of Love and Mercy is so far away. The bridge is long too. We'll be caught before we get there. Besides, we can't even go outside. Everything is locked up. There were locks all over the orphanage. To escape, you'd need a key for both the inside and the outside, and after the lights were turned off, even each section of the hallway was individually locked. Make no mistake, this was a prison. According to the rumors, orphanages receive government funding depending on the number of children they house. So if anyone escapes, they lose money. Oh my god! Every little thing I hear of this place gets worse. Also, if we were to expose the conditions at the orphanage, they would end up being inspected, and things would get complicated for them. That was why they were so intent on keeping us locked up. Sure, if there were a chance, I would want to escape. But realistically, there was no way we would. We could. Every door's locked. Well, did you know? The hen house in the courtyard uses the same key as the door to the back stairs. Huh? Really? Shh. Eriko shushed us. Sometimes, mass-produced locks take the same key. Of course, most places use different types of locks, so that wouldn't happen. The staff at the orphanage must have overlooked it. There were 2 locks that used the same key at the orphanage. However, most of us never had the chance to even touch the keys. But there were a few exceptions. One of those was the hen house. Each room group took turns taking care of different chores. If your group was assigned to clean the hen house, you'd have to get the key to it from the teacher's office. You were supposed to return the key immediately after you were done. While taking care of the hen house, the key was in the children's hands. While the staff would occasionally come around to check, that they couldn't keep an eye on us forever. I really wonder how old these children are. We haven't gotten any hints to how old they are. Eriko-chan, you aren't thinking about using that key, are you? Let's not. It's too dangerous. Of course it's dangerous if there's only one of us. But it's different if we're in a group. Wait, why? You know that why only one kid was caught the last time they tried to escape? They were desperate. So to escape as a group. No. They did something to increase the chance of success. Oh. It really is the sacrifice. That's why only one of them was caught. What did they do? They scattered as they ran. They dashed in different directions. They waited until the day when there was only a few people working at the orphanage, and ran this way and that. And so, although it all depended on luck, it would increase the chance of success for sure. On your own, you'd probably have no hope. If the staff were to chase after other children, then your own chance of escaping successfully would increase. In other words, Eriko was inviting us to escape with her. The more children joined, the more each of our chances would increase. But among us, there were children who tattled to the staff for their own benefit, so she had to be very careful about who she talked to. Eriko must have trusted us a lot. Eriko, me, Tomomi, and Kikuko. 4 children. Do any of you want to stay here a day longer? 3 of us shook our heads. At the same time, we couldn't agree to escape with her either. Of course we don't want to stay here a day longer, or even an hour longer. Even if we did exactly the same thing as we did yesterday, we might get yelled at tomorrow. Can't stand this anymore. Can't stand living in fear of what to do and what not to do so I won't be yelled at. We all feel the same way. We could endure strict rules. It was almost impossible to endure vague ones. It wasn't too much of a stretch to say that the rules depended on the mood of the staff. This is okay, that isn't okay. Such borderline rules change daily, and if we were to say anything about that, we would be treated horribly for it. I will escape, even if I have to do it alone. Like I said, the more people that join, the better our chance. Think about it. If they find out about this henhouse key trick, they're sure to change the lock on the back door. In other words, we only have one chance. So even if you regret not joining in later, it'll be too late. But, I'm scared. I'm scared too. If we get caught, we'll be killed. Tomomi and Kikuko weren't the only ones who felt afraid. Fear was perfectly understandable. Because all of a sudden, the fear of the punishment that would follow had become very realistic. I'm sure Eriko felt the same way too. But her courage was suppressing her fear. Because of that, she shared her idea with us. So, you plan to stay here forever? No way! I know you're scared, but this is the only chance we have. You have to be brave just this once. What about you, Miyoko? Miyoko? I guess Mio, so Miyoko for the long version. Don't you want to go with me? Like Tomomi and Kikuko, I wasn't trembling that much. Of course, I was scared in my own way, but compared to the other two, I must have appeared rather calm. Can we really escape? Of course, Eriko couldn't guarantee our success, but I had to ask her anyway. There's no guarantee, but if you join me, I'll have a better chance of escaping than trying to run on my own. Of course, the same goes for you too. Eriko gave a calculated reason, but I'm sure she just wanted a friend to agree with her. It was probably more important to her than increasing her chances to escape. Tomomi, Kikuko, if you're too scared, then I won't force you. Miyoko and I will escape ourselves. 2 is enough. Well... Eriko rushed the 2 to make up their minds. It almost looked cold, that was her way of mustering their courage. Because it was very possible that, regardless of the outcome of our escape attempt, as our roommates, those two would be held responsible. It's not like we'll do it tomorrow. Our turn to take care of the hen house is in a week. We'll wait for a perfect time to do it. If we don't feel that it's safe, then we'll wait until our next turn. We'll be very careful. Rotation of the staff and the timing were important. We also had to know the way to the House of Love and Mercy. We were planning to split up, so we had to know the area. I made up my mind. Okay, I'm coming with you. But let's time our escape very carefully, okay? Of course. We'll be killed if we get caught. I don't want to die. I'll come too. Me too, me too. Tomomi and Kikuko agreed, so we all decided to escape as a group. We waited for the perfect opportunity. We waited for the day where only a few staff members were at the orphanage. We decided to let God take care of the rest. Oh, it's open. Maybe it was the way I did it? Eriko tried to open the lock several times without success, but I got it open on the first attempt. The back door opened slowly. We felt a cool breeze. This wasn't the world of freedom just yet. Turn it down a little. Okay. Loud rain! In fact, it was the exact opposite. If the staff were to find out we were here, we would be in big trouble. It was a world of danger. But unless we went through that dangerous world, we wouldn't be able to go any further. Okay, let's go. I think Eriko wanted to say that. We were planning to leave with that as our cue. What we heard and said wasn't Eriko's voice. What are you kids doing there? We started to run. It was raining. We all got soaked immediately. Our clothes stuck to our skin. While that would be normally very uncomfortable, we couldn't even stop to think about that. We could only keep running in the rain. We were dashing on gravel, but it felt more like trudging through a muddy rice field. My feet kept sinking, and I couldn't pull them up. I was frustrated because no matter how fast I tried to run, I wasn't gaining any speed. I felt a sense of urgency. I felt someone yelling, "Escape!" behind me, and all I could do was run like crazy. Oh, okay, everyone going in different directions. Scatter! Come on, scatter! With Eriko's cue, we all went different ways, hoping they wouldn't be coming after us. Would we be able to reunite safely at the House of Love and Mercy? All four of us were there together. Or maybe someone would be missing. No, maybe everyone else would make it, and I'd be the one who gets caught. Thoughts were interrupted by the voice of a staff member coming from behind me. Hold it! Wait! Hold it right there! Staff members would have numbered fewer than us, so if I was lucky, they wouldn't be coming after me. Praying that the staff voices I heard in the distance weren't after me, I looked back for a moment. I had time to turn around. Why didn't I take another step forward? Why didn't I try to escape further? As I turned around, I felt a huge hand cover my face. Its pinky finger slipped into my mouth, my open mouth. The hand grabbing my face shoved me into the muddy gravel. Of course, I didn't stay quiet. I fought back. And then I saw his face. It was the scariest face I'd ever seen. I realized it immediately. He only wanted to capture me alive, to use me as an example. Considering what would happen to me afterwards, killing me here on the spot wouldn't pose any problem, would it? Yes. He looked at me with unworldly hate, ready to end my life, here and now. His pinky finger ended up touching my tongue. The indescribably nasty taste sent an icky feeling through my whole body. Ah, that's it. This is what murder tastes like. He was going to shove that finger down my windpipe and suffocate me. And so, in order to live, I fought back in the only way I could. Yes! Fight! Ah! Something warm filled my mouth. Felt like swallowing blood after a nosebleed. I spit it from my mouth and ran without turning around, leaving behind the staff member clutching his pinky finger. You little shit, damn you! I'll kill you! I heard his roars echoing behind me. It wasn't a man that was after me. It was a beast. He had no interest in capturing me. His only goal was to see me dead. My shoes had slipped off. They weren't sneakers, so they came off easily while I was running like mad. My bare feet struck the gravel over and over. It was painful, but I didn't care. Because if I stopped, I knew what would happen to me. I have a little theory that the House of Love and Mercy isn't real, or it's something really bad, like a cliff face. Something like that. 3 branches cut my face and barbed wires scratched my thighs. My feet and toes were bloody from running on gravel. The blood from the staff member's pinky finger dripped out from my mouth, staining my chin and chest. I was running for my life, with scratches and cuts all over my body. If I were to get caught, I would be killed. If my pursuer had any sense, I would be killed after being tortured. But if he didn't, I would be killed on the spot. I don't want to be killed. I don't want to be killed. My lungs and heart were about to explode. My mind was blank from fear and lack of oxygen. I was about to lose consciousness. I might have given in. I didn't hear the voice of a staff member coming after me. My knees were shaking. My legs wouldn't move properly. I felt like I was going to fall like a puppet without strings. But I couldn't fall. I couldn't fall just yet. It was too late. My face had hit the gravel. I felt the awful sensation of falling. And immediately after, the roar of the beast coming from behind me. Damn you! My finger! My finger! Ah! 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 What's happening? Must have hit my thigh against the steering wheel when I jumped. Oh, is she having a nightmare? I can feel the throbbing pain, delayed slightly. Sweating all over. I wiped the sweat on my forehead and put my hand on my chest, only then realizing how fast my heart was beating. I rubbed my thigh. I rubbed it in a straight line. It's not where I hit the steering wheel, but I feel like this is where it hurts. I can't see a scary beast in the moonlit car. I have my shoes on, and I'm not covered in blood. My toes are fine, too. Someone knocked on the window, startling me. Major, it's time. Ah, oh, thank you. I wanted to take a nap, so I told them to come wake me up in an hour. Maybe an hour was too long. Too long a nap actually makes you tired. That's true! Put my seat back up and got out of the car. Cool breeze feels good on my skin. I only see the moon. There's nothing else to see on this mountain trail. My car and a command vehicle disguised as a trailer parked on the side of the street. I still feel that bad taste in my mouth. I spat it out on the side of the street, but even that couldn't get rid of it. The taste of blood, saliva, and rain. Sweat from my forehead and raindrops got into my mouth, but I couldn't swallow, so I ended up drooling. That sensation on my lips brought back memories, and I tried to wipe my mouth. Whew. Maybe I'm nervous. That's why it's such a bad dream. I think there's a coffee machine in the command vehicle. An unpleasant cup of coffee will wake me up. So? Has anything happened yet? No, not yet. I just got Gifu's scheduled check-in. Everything is okay over there. I see. Hey, could someone make me a cup of coffee? Sure. Cream and sugar? Just cream, please. Ah, no, please put some sugar in too. Still have a bad taste in my mouth. Feeling of biting and crushing his little finger, and his filthy blood filling my mouth. Sure, a sweeter cup of coffee will wash down that bad taste, and also wake me up from my nightmare completely. I still don't care. I still don't care how horrible of a life she had. If she's responsible for literally everything bad happening, then I don't care. The House of Love and Mercy experienced a memory of escape. Do I get any tips? There's no tips? Why is there no tips? Takuno's age is debatable. She's said to be mid-30s. If you put her at 35 at present, she would have been 9 in the flashback. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Weird no tips. But okay. Banquet to end back. The back end, over. One more speaker, then the toast starts. Wait, what are we doing now? Are you ready? This is the back end, we're ready. Can't hear anything from inside, so please give us a cue when the speech is wrapping up. Listen up, 10 bottles of beer per table. Make sure to deliver them to your area smoothly. Young hotel workers dressed smartly in bow ties pulled bottle after bottle out of the beer cases, preparing for the toast. They waited for their cue to serve the drinks while listening through the intercom. At a normal party, they could have put bottles of beer on the table ahead of time. But there was a lecture before the party, then they couldn't. Guests don't mind sushi going dry due to a long speech. They don't like seeing their tables get wet with condensation from bottles of beer. More than anything, they certainly don't want to drink warm beer. That's why beer has to be served right before a toast. However, there was always a speech before a toast. Usually a long one. Especially at a big party like this. There are lots of guests that give speeches, so it's extremely difficult to know when to serve. For that reason, the bottles end up sitting outside by the banquet room. People end up drinking warm beer anyway. There were several dozen tables with white tablecloths on them in the banquet room. Approximately 8 people were sitting at each table, so there were at least a few hundred people in the room. The banquet room was filled with excitement. There were many plates with many different kinds of food on each table. A sushi platter, a sashimi platter, a fruits platter, and along the wall there were cooks ready to serve fresh sashimi. All the guests appeared to be well-mannered gentlemen, and clearly were notable people in various different fields. A huge and beautiful chandelier above them clearly indicated that this hotel held a status good enough for these famous people. An elderly gentleman was giving a lengthy speech on the stage before making a toast. Usually people don't like such long speeches, especially if it's before a toast. But the guests occasionally shouted yes, yes, and sometimes gave him a loud applause, filling the room with their fervor. Well, maybe fervor was a pleasant way to put it. Probably more accurate to say their excitement was bizarre. Which country would actually teach people not to show respect towards their own flag? There are no others. It's happening only in Japan. What? That's right, that's right! Is forcing people to respect their national flag and anthem an obstruction of their freedom? Yes? That's a foolish idea. Listen, love for one's national flag and anthem comes naturally to all. To know ourselves, to know our culture, to understand our history and our country itself. Those are the things that make you realize that you're a Japanese citizen, that make you understand that the part you play as a citizen of this country. The feeling you get from that is love towards your own country. However, those anti-Japan teachers were proclaiming that it's materialistic brainwashing. Right? Just a little. Those stupid claims are wrong. What are those people doing anyway? They're teaching our children to hate being Japanese. They're the ones brainwashing them with this self-destructive education. This sounds so much like... This sounds a lot like... They're teaching our children that Japan should be ashamed of itself. And that they should be ashamed of being Japanese. Forget who you are and deny your country. That's what they're teaching them. These innocent children listen and believe such nonsense. Of course they do. They go to school to learn things, right? Their teachers teach them that. Of course the children believe it. Can you believe such corruption exists? We must do something about this country's education now, no matter what it takes. Sound of applause filled the banquet room. All the gentlemen agreed and expressed that they felt the same way by cheering him on. After that, a gentleman wearing a cloth sash approached the stage. Hall welcomed him onto the stage with another round of thunderous applause. A rousing theme from a popular drama series played as he took the stage, but it was entirely unnecessary before the overwhelming applause. The man's sash carried his name written in large letters, along with the name of the prefecture he was running for office in. Sorry. Nationalism makes me sneeze. Thanks. Let me introduce to you a patriot, Blank-kun. This man has served the former governor as the right-hand man as director of the office of the governor for many years, supporting the prefecture's government for a long time. Since the previous governor has decided to retire, he was appointed as the next governor. Fortunately, we have those anti-Japan teachers in our prefecture. While they proclaim freedom of education and freedom of thought, they're shamelessly forcing an anti-Japan education down on our children. They don't teach real history, they teach our children that everything was Japan's fault. They don't even mention the true purpose of the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere, or all those who fought to save Asian peoples from Western control. I have no idea what they're talking about. What is the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere? Don't even talk about how many Asian countries were actually Western countries before Japan stood up for our freedom during the war. Our country has recovered amazingly since then. Yet our children don't know any of that, because those teachers don't teach them. World War II stuff. Japan's faction alliance during World War II. I thought that was the, Axis. No, that's World War I. World War II. World War II was still Axis, right? They had both? Axis is correct. Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. Because if it's World War II stuff, then Italy and Germany would also be in that. But they're not... Are they? No, they're not East Asia. They're not Asia at all. They're Europe. Huh, okay. I'm learning. How truly, truly sad. Can't stand the fact those anti-Japan teachers are actually teaching our children alongside those teachers who are teaching seriously. They are insulting our educational institutions. I'll become governor and get rid of those teachers. I will straighten out our education system and make sure our children will grow up to be decent young people who can carry on Japan's future. He, Blank-kun, announces his candidacy for next year's prefectural governorship. We appreciate your support for him. Focus Prosperity Sphere was Japan, Thailand, and various Japanese puppets. Ah, okay. Axis is World War II, Germany, and Japan's alliance. Prosperity Sphere is what Japan called the stuff they took over to act like they were liberating. Right, okay. Yeah, I remember now. I remember that. Japan tried to take a lot of things. I promise I will straighten out Japan's education system. Thank you for your support. Again, the banquet room filled with applause. The man was receiving standing ovation. I need to explain a bit about this banquet before you misunderstand. Who was talking to us? It wasn't the conference of a political association or a lecture by a political candidate. It's hard to believe, but this was nothing more than a meeting of a college's alumni association. Everyone should be familiar with what those are. Whether it's elementary school, junior high school, or college. Once you graduate from one of those, you normally belong to an organization of alumni. You receive invitations for reunions where you enjoy talking about the good old days. However, there are many different types of such organizations. Some are simple, some are united with much tighter bonds. Once an organization becomes united with those tight bonds, it's no longer a simple organization of alumni. Rather, it becomes a significant faction known as the alma mater clique. Japanese society. It's traditional for graduates to form tighter bonds that go beyond the level of an organization. Also, the more superior the alma mater, the stronger the tendency holds true. The Imperial University, one of the best universities in the country, is famous for its deep bonds its graduates form. Why do superior people like to bond? Maybe because they take pride in being superior. But more than that, maintaining connections is the most significant reason. All Imperial University graduates are elites in their respective fields. They are likely to succeed and become important people. When they do, the unity of their alumni associations gains immeasurable meaning. In fact, even today, the Imperial University graduates maintain their tight academic clique. Is that real? So I know the big university is like Kanto University, right? So is that what this is, or is this different? They hold great influence throughout many different fields. They interact with other universities as well, but the graduates' bonds are extremely tight even today. Additionally, while Imperial University usually refers to the University of Tokyo, sometimes it's used to mean all 7 major universities in Japan. They're located in Tokyo, Kyoto, Tohoku, Kyushu, Hokkaido, Osaka, and Nagoya. They're all great schools. There happens to be an organization of alumni that includes all of those 7 universities. Not Tohoku. The elderly gentlemen in this banquet room were each from one of those organizations. However, not every graduate would get an invitation here automatically. It's a society of select gentlemen. In order to become a member, one must fulfill several conditions, such as recommendation from an existing member, contribution to the society, possession of status, and so forth. It's a weird place to drop in because what's happening right now in this freaking game, I don't understand, but thank you for stopping by. Hello. Okay. It's like, I'm at the point where I'm like, am I reading Higurashi? This isn't freaking Higurashi anymore. This is World War II. World War II history class. I have this one on my game list? Okay, you gotta click off. This is spoilers, giant spoiler territory. So I would recommend click off, go read chapter 1 and stream it because it's very fun to stream. This is a lecture on Japanese right-wing politics. That's true. That's true.
If it wasn't for those meddling liberal Tokyo teachers.
True, true. Yeah, you joined at the very end. Yeah, this is chapter 8. So, this is like, what, 200 hours in? It's crazy. But there's one more very important criterion that one has to meet to join. Strong patriotism. Heart that longs to contribute to Japan its rebirth. As a result, this organization has become extremely nationalistic. Up on the stage, the candidate for the prefectural governorship was still talking passionately. And among those elderly gentlemen in the crowd, Takano can be found. Takano seemed used to this kind of conference, seemed unsurprised at anything that was said. But at the same time, she looked rather fed up with it. As she was in attendance, she must have been one of their members. This meant she possessed not only an extremely excellent academic background, but that the older gentleman there had acknowledged her equivalent contribution to society, that she possessed strong patriotism. However, her academic background was the only qualification she had met to join. She was only able to join as a special case because of her connections. She didn't even hold prejudiced ideas like the other members did. She wasn't even racist! What? Oh my god. I learned about this one because someone made a video about this game and the neurodivergence in it. The neurodivergence? I'll be honest, I don't really see that, but, you know, commend them, I guess, for looking into it. I mean, there's a lot of mental illness happening here. I don't know if I would say that's neurodivergence, but I guess it could be. I mean, they're all kind of crazy! Oh my god. That's insane. I don't know if I would put neurodivergence equal crazy, but I would say, they're very quirky. Unless it's a different one made by the same guy. Ryukishi 07? Oh, it's another one! What do you mean it's another one? Are you talking about, what is the other one? Umineko. That one. Okay. Yeah, I haven't played that one. That one's after this one, so I don't know. Actually, it's Seagull. But I guess, yeah. Okay. So why was she here today? Probably because of the same reason as the man giving a speech on the stage. The man on the stage didn't actually have prejudiced ideas, much like Takano. He only prepared a speech that he knew the guests would like. Politicians only want votes. Each and every person has a vote, but appealing to each one of them takes too long. The most efficient way is to appeal to organizations with a unified idea and a unified will. In other words, this man was giving this speech so he can garner support from those powerful people. The elderly gentlemen in the banquet room will then do their best to support him, since he appears to share their ideals. They can offer many different kinds of expediency, support, and assistance. To an outrageous degree, I might add. They're literally explaining politics to me, and I didn't ask for this. When I want to play Higurashi, I don't want politics.
Get these politics out of my video game!
The day's event continued in the same way. The organization would likely decide to officially support him. They will probably give him a great deal of financial aid. They'll assist him in different ways as well. Of course, the man on the stage won't be the only one gaining something. When he wins the election and becomes a governor next year, the organization will welcome the governor as a new member and will gain even more political influence. And eventually, the organization will become so powerful that nobody can ignore it. Those of you reading this right now probably get the sense that they're no mere alumni association. Who is speaking to me? Who is this? Is this Ryukishi? Ryukushi? What's his... 07? You'd be absolutely right. After reaching this level, they were a fine syndicate. No, they would be a secret society if the group wasn't so open about its activities. Now I'm sure some of you readers are brushing this off, thinking there's no way such a suspicious organization could exist in Japan. But everything I've explained is entirely true. There are several such influential groups and organizations within our society. And you need to understand that they hold powerful political clout and influence our national policies. Why does this kind of feel like a help letter? You know? He wrote this and he was like, please, somebody help. This is happening right now. You know, it's probably still happening. It happened, what, 20 years ago? But I'm guessing these are the backers to the weird medical group. True. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. The geopolitical situation in Japan is imperative to understanding for school children's social life. Yeah. Some are alma mater cliques like the one I've described above. Others are scientific societies serving different parties, industrial groups, advisory committees, religious organizations, community service groups, and so forth. Also, there are right wings and left wings, the hawk and the dove. I won't go listing their specific names here. Yet you've probably read them every now and then in your average newspaper. In Japan, the terms for such forces aren't very common. Most of your readers probably think of suspicious organization wearing white hoods when you hear the phrase secret society and laugh it off. And unfortunately, that's a huge mistake. In America! In America, where there's far more territory and citizens, there's way more groups like that. And they possess such vast influence that ignoring them is impossible. About my country! Yay! Ryukichi's talking about my country! USA mention! Oh, that's so bad though. The way that he's saying, there's way more groups than that. Oh, there's way more groups like that. I mean, he's not wrong, but... So the terms they use for such forces doesn't apply to those on the scale of this syndicate. Sometimes the people say that such groups have more power than the White House, and they're referred to as the shadow government. The shadow government! Oh my god! They're freaking watching me! The glowies! You people in chat, you better not be glowies. I'll freaking freak out, man. Deep state mention! Oh my god. Even here in Japan, we had a shadow government before the war, our Zaibatsu. After we lost the war, the GHQ dismantled those blocks, but 40 years have passed since then. No guarantee our country hasn't given birth to another shadow government, given how good we are at collusion, groundwork, and backroom deals. Mio Takano was, in fact, attending a conference of such a shadow government. Japanese MAGA. Maja? Make Japan great again? No way! We're back in Higurashi world? Are we back? It might appear to be a guest house at the huge golf course. There were no golfers in sight, but by appearances, this must be it. But appearances can be deceiving. This wasn't a golf course, but a huge backyard. Guest house was, in fact, a very stylish mansion. Normal people would be surprised to learn that this was a private residence. The interior of the building was as lavish as the exterior. There were beautiful carpets on every floor, expensive-looking decorations on the wall, and expensive-looking bottles of alcohol on the shelves. It's the kind of room Takano could be seen in. There was a knock at the door. An old man in a wheelchair and a young man pushing it entered. As Takano stood up to bow, the old man stopped her by raising his right hand.
No, you don't need to stand up. Long time no see. I've been telling you to come see me anytime, but you never do.
It's great to see you, Koizumi-sensei. The old man sat down on the sofa with assistance from the woman. He was very old, his face covered in wrinkles, and he could hardly do anything on his own. Even so, he still held a great deal of power and influence.
Oh my, you haven't changed a bit, have you? I can see lipstick on your neck. Hee hee.
Oh? Is that right? Good grief, how embarrassing.
There was no lipstick on his neck.
Wait. His? Did I get them wrong? This is Takano and a guy. Huh. Okay, though, this is Takano talking.
And he's like, oh, how embarrassing.
I get it, okay. The woman who was helping him with his wheelchair was too beautiful to be a mere helper, so Takano had suspected something. As it turned out, her guess was correct. Although he was so old he could die the next day. He wanted to say sexually active until the very end.
Oh, did we need to know this? Did we need to know this?
Even the Grim Reaper would think that's just absurd.
Mio-chan, you've become quite beautiful yourself. You're not a little girl anymore, eh?
Oh, stop. If you really think that way, why didn't you try— Oh! Gross!
What have you got to lose from having an old guy like me touch your butt?
I'm sure you have plenty of chances to touch a softer butt, don't you? Can we not? Takano and the old man enjoyed a tasteless conversation. They had clearly known each other a long time, and were very close. The young woman came back to serve tea. As she left, the old man started to speak.
Anyway, I'm so proud of you, Mio-chan. Sure your grandfather in heaven is proud of you too.
I hope so, but I'm not even close to approaching the level of my grandfather's great work.
Takano-kun was unlucky in many different ways. The era he lived in. He lived in a different era. Sure he would have finished his research.
But he lived in that era, and ironically, that was why he noticed the existence of the Hinamizawa syndrome.
The world today is in the nuclear era, with America and the Soviet Union glaring at each other over mounds of nuclear stockpiles. It takes nukes to have authority as a major power. Yet we forever abandon our nukes thanks to our 3 anti-nuclear principles. This age, we are now a nation without nukes. How deplorable.
And a nation without nukes is deplorable? In the middle of the 20th century, despite the rising tensions between East and West, there was a temporary peace, known as the Cold War, brought by a balance of nukes pointed at one another. Permanent memberships in the United Nations were monopolized by nations with nuclear arms. They secured their predominance with nukes, bound the world with nuclear non-proliferation treaties, eternally banning non-nuclear nations from the world stage. For Japan to become a nation that can compete with the world, must develop nuclear arms, or something as powerful. Is that true? That if you didn't have nukes, you couldn't be United Nations? That's not true, is it? So why would you want them to have nukes? Or is it like a figurative thing that, oh, if you didn't have nukes, you weren't a real country, you know? Is that it? That's probably it. That's what some people believed, at least.
Realistically, Japan will never arm itself with nuclear weapons.
I know. Citizens wouldn't accept it. Even if the government ignored their opinions and armed itself with nuclear weapons, it wouldn't work. By abandoning nuclear weaponry, Japan gained the deterrent power of the United States. Though some people thought the only way for Japan to become equal to the United States would be to get nuclear arms of their own. But realistically, that was impossible. Even if Japan armed itself with nuclear weapons, that wouldn't automatically let Japan join the great powers. Takano and the old man discussed the balance of nuclear power in the world. Eventually, the sound of a cuckoo clock reminded them to return to the main subject at hand. The old man pointed to the attaché case that had been sitting next to Takano. Takano nodded once, opened it up, and removed the contents. There were brand new bills packed in it. How much was actually in there? A bundle of brand new million-yen bills is 1 centimeter. So it must have been at least enough to make up 8 digits. Also 2 more attaché cases by her side. However, neither Takano nor the old man were surprised at all. Takano closed the attaché case and bowed. Thank you very much, Koizumi-sensei. I'll never forget about this.
Ha ha ha, money should be handled by younger people. Can't take it to heaven with me. I just hope this will be of assistance to you. Use it wisely.
Of course I will. I'll use this money only to make my grandfather's dream come true.
I envy Takano-kun. What a wonderful grandchild he was. Sure he's bragging about you up there.
Whoa. So this is her grandfather's grandfather. How is he still alive? Jesus, that's insane. What? Oh wait, well sorry. What a wonderful grandchild he has. I get it. Okay, sorry. I thought what a wonderful grandchild I have. I messed that up. I haven't done anything yet. I'll have earned this praise when I complete my grandfather's work.
I'm so jealous. My boys are no good. They're only interested in making money. What really matters is how the money is spent. How you contribute to the country is what's most important. How you repay your debt to it, you know?
Oh, so are you saying that treating all those lovers so lavishly is also a way of repaying your country?
Of course. When they shop, the country makes money. Money goes around, you see?
However, those lovers would probably end up buying some foreign goods. Things probably don't work quite the way this old man thinks they do. Takano chuckled to herself.
But the money I give to those women and the money I give to you are completely different.
I know that very well.
You've worked very hard. You've gained trust and support from so many people. This is the first time I've mentioned it, but Haruyama-kun and Mochizuki-kun weren't sure about you because of your age at first. Ha ha ha. So I'm acknowledging your efforts. That's why I'm giving you this money.
I understand.
Also, for me to give you this money means that I recognize you as the official successor of Takano-kun's research.
Thank you very much. Thank you for believing in me. I truly appreciate it.
No, don't mention it. This research is Takano-kun's and yours too. You wouldn't want anyone else to take over. So, thanks to all of your effort, I didn't have to spend too much time convincing the other old folks.
Completing my grandfather's research is the least I can do for him. I won't begrudge any efforts toward that aim. Takano smiled as she remembered everything she had to go through to get to this point. And without saying, the old men around Takano saw her as someone from their grandchildren's generation, or maybe even younger. So how much trouble did Takano have to endure in order to gain the trust of those with such a large generation gap? It's hard to describe to those who couldn't even imagine her trouble. But Takano earned it. She gathered allies, drove away enemies, garnered support, forced them to recognize her. Spent a long time establishing trust and rising to a status that the old man would welcome. It was all the more reason this meeting was a reward for her many days of hardship. Now that she officially had a powerful influence backing her, she could spread her wings and see the completion of her grandfather's unfinished research.
Well, now that you're officially continuing Takano-kun's research, something I need to tell you, Mio-chan.
What is it? I'm listening. The old man paused and pulled an expensive cigarette from the cigarette holder on the table. Takano lit it for him. She didn't smoke herself, but knowing that the old man did, she kept the lighter in her pocket. Constant build-up of little gestures like that were how she gained the trust of she held today.
Takano-kun noticed the Hinamizawa syndrome in Manchuria, not Japan.
Yes? According to my grandfather's journal, around Showa 15, I learned that many soldiers sent from Hinamizawa to the Kwantung army expressed terminal symptoms, which led him to surmise that an unknown infectious parasite dwelled in Hinamizawa. Under the harsh conditions of war, people sometimes lost their minds. In those conditions, people who were sent to a far-off battlefield from Hinamizawa spent their days under duress, and occasionally they exhibited terminal symptoms hallucinated, and caused twisted incidents. Yet that all occurred in the extensive chaos of the battlefield. Every incident was handled separately. No one suspected there was an underlying cause.
At the time, Takano-kun was working as a military physician in the Kwantung Army. He was researching the prevention of different infectious diseases. And one day, he noticed that several incidents of deranged behavior were occurring among soldiers from the same hometown. He hypothesized that these symptoms were unique to those from Hinamizawa and began his own personal research. He hired soldiers from Hinamizawa's workers in his research center and studied them there. And he learned of the unique Hinamizawa faith in Oyashiro-sama. And he was convinced that he found an infectious parasite with unique properties.
Some may wonder how he could be so certain that these symptoms were caused by unusual parasites. At the beginning of the 20th century, German doctors proved that some unknown diseases were caused by bacteria and parasites. At the time, it wasn't too far of a jump to assume that unknown pathogens could be behind unknown diseases. For instance, in modern times, it's been revealed that beriberi is caused by vitamin B1 deficiency. At the start of the 20th century, many loudly proclaimed it was the work of an unidentified pathogen. Ah! Okay, I kind of see what they're getting at here. So it could just be a deficiency, or it could be, like, toxin. It doesn't really have to be a pathogen.
Yes.
My grandfather predicted that his research would be valuable in the army, so he asked for a budget, and they just laughed at him.
As a researcher, her father was very talented and passionate.
When it came to gaining the aid of political powers, he simply struck out.
Hinamizawa syndrome.
No, the possible existence of a parasite that infected the human brain and controlled emotions. Even though he made the remarkable achievement of discovering a mystery no one had explained before him, he was unable to convince others of that achievement. He spent his life alone, unable to garner support, unable to achieve proper recognition for his achievement. You know, he would be able to garner recognition if he described it in a better way. Like, okay, parasite is pretty out there, it's pretty extreme. Let's start a little lower. Let's say there's weird things happening in this village when they leave, right? Maybe that's caused by poisonous gas. That's a lot more believable than a worm that a freaking brain worm that controls people's minds. You know, maybe we start at the gas, investigate, see what's going on, and if it happens to be a brain worm, then wow, you found it out. But I don't know. It's not very, Independent research has its limit. Talented people, funding, and backup. A research project can be successful only if all those things are present. Takano had noticed her grandfather's mistakes, and that's why she did everything she could to obtain all of that. The military at the time was hoping for a low-cost, immediate-acting weapon. While Takano-kun's research was extremely intriguing, it didn't meet the military's expectations.
I heard you were the only one who understood.
I heard you were the only one who understood my grandfather's research, weren't you? In his journal, he calls you his best friend.
Came from the same hometown. It was a miracle to run into someone from the same hometown on such a distant battlefield. Although we weren't close in age, we became very good friends. We talked a lot. Many times he told me his research would be revolutionary, asking me to lay the groundwork to secure funding for a full-scale research.
I read in his journal that you talked to many different people about his research. Fortunately, its value was never recognized, but I'm sure your support meant a lot to him.
But I was never able to really do anything for him, so I want to help you, Mio-chan. Helping you is like atoning for my mistakes.
Thank you very much. He was lucky to have you as his best friend. If only there were more understanding people like you in the military's upper echelon. It's very regrettable to think that my grandfather's life might have been different. The old man closed his eyes and paused for a moment. Shortly after that, he looked into the distance and spoke.
Actually, that isn't true at all. The higher-ups were interested in Takano-kun's discovery.
What? I've never heard that before. Then why didn't they support his research?
Something came up. They couldn't let him look into Hinamizawa syndrome. Only a few of the top brass and myself knew the reason. Now that all but myself have passed, I think I should tell you, Mio-chan, that you're carrying on his work.
What came up? What was it?
Takano had believed until this day that her grandfather's research was ridiculed by everyone. It was the reason why it never gained any recognition. Her grandfather had asked the military for funding so he could uncover the secret of Hinamizawa syndrome during the war. But just like the old man had said earlier, the military wanted an instant-acting weapon. That's why they weren't interested in his research. That's what she had believed. But as it turned out, the military had actually shown an interest after all. Before I go on, I need to explain about the Kwantung Army in Manchuria at the time. Is that a real place? Is that a real army from a real place that happened? While the Kwantung Army was stationed in Manchuria, opinions were divided whether to advance our forces north or south. At the time, Japan had troops in Manchuria, and opinions were divided on advancing north to deter the Soviet Union or advancing south to expand our territory and secure resources. The Soviet Union and its predecessor, Russia, being a landlocked frozen nation, they had long yearned for an ice-free port that wouldn't freeze over in winter. They had made numerous attempts to expand their territory southward, too. Those expansionist policies were said to be the cause of the Russo-Japanese War. In the history books, it said that Japan won the Russo-Japanese War. It was actually a draw, ending in peace signed at the Treaty of Portsmouth. Both sides had simply set aside their spears after mutually exhausting their forces. It's unlike Russia capitalized and offered a complete surrender. Capitulated. Not capitalized. As a result, the perception of the Russian threat continued to smolder. Later, the Russian Empire was overthrown by a revolution, but Japan was unable to shake the threat that the new Soviet Union would advance south. According to the history books, Japan went south. They signed the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact and abandoned the northern advance. As a result, when the Great Patriotic War began, the Soviet Union was able to respond to pressure on their German front by pouring in their eastern forces. Though the Germans had managed to lay siege to Moscow, the Soviets launched a massive counteroffensive that had reversed the tides of war. I am learning so much about war. Oh my god, it's like I got bits and pieces of this from history class, but this is insane. Manchuria was the first place Japan invaded. Okay. Even with the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact, the Soviets couldn't tell if Japan would attack them at some point. Because of that threat, the Soviets had to leave some forces in the Far East, and they weren't able to devote enough troops to the German front. For starters, the Soviets had forged this Germany-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact too. Yet, Germany broke the treaty and attacked the Soviet Union. To make matters worse, Japan and Germany had forged a military alliance. All those factors in play, Soviets naturally couldn't trust Japan to uphold their neutrality pact. Ironically, the Soviet Union was the one who broke the pact, but I won't get into that now. Oh my god, and now we have a Hitler mention in Higurashi as well. Exactly, Hitler signed the tripartite? Yeah, pact, because he expected Japan to keep Soviets' other front in check. But ultimately, Japan abandoned the North. With the superior German offensive, many supported the idea of waiting and watching it play out. They believed that even if we did advance north, it would be after Germany conquered Moscow. However, that plan was exposed to Sorge. And the Soviets transferred their heavy tanks from the Far East border to the German front. Tripartite Pact was the Axis. Okay. That secured Germany's defeat at Moscow, and the Germans began seeing a string of defeats starting with the Battle of Kursk. It was the turning point in history. It was a turning point in history, huh? During the Cold War, the Soviet Union was recognized as a global power. But at least in Showa 15, the Kwantung Army didn't think it was a particular threat. Japan had earned a victory with the Russo-Japanese War, and they took the new Soviet Union government lightly, assuming it wouldn't be stable after overthrowing the Russian Empire. That underestimation was corrected after the Nomonhan incident in Showa 16.
There were several fierce short-term battles with the Soviet Union's advanced mechanized corps that led to great losses. The Kwantung Army realized they shouldn't fight the Soviets, and that they inclined Japan towards the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact. But at the very least, until the Nanmonhan incident, the Kwantung Army was strongly conscious of the Soviets and divided on advancing north or south. Thanks to that, there were also voices advising caution, suggesting we avoid all-out war with China in order to shore up our forces against the Soviets. But the Sino-Japanese War broke out after the Marco Polo Bridge accident, right? Marco Polo Bridge incident? What? July, Showa 12. The Japanese and Chinese armies were staring at each other across the Lugo Bridge in Beijing. Dude, if you told me that this deep into Higurashi, we were literally getting a play-by-play of politics and war, I wouldn't believe you. Oh my god. This is insane. It was the middle of the night on July 7th. The Chinese army fired on the Japanese army in training, and they engaged in combat. This triggered the long Sino-Japanese War. Yes, according to historical records, that incident triggered the Sino-Japanese War, but with opinions divided over advancing north or south, the army was equally divided over a full-scale confrontation with China. No, in fact, we even received orders from the General Staff Headquarters to resolve the matter quietly before the incident grew much bigger. Okay, but like real talk, what does the history lesson have to do with research? We don't know! Maybe we'll find out. The Marco Polo incident started the second Sino-Japanese— oh, shut up. Okay. Alright. So those supporting the northern advance wanted to settle the Battle of Lugo Bridge quietly, insisting that conflict with China was pointless in light of their anti-Soviet strategy. However, those on the mainland supporting the southern advance used this incident to cause to dispatch more troops to China. They enacted hard policies against China, and thus the Marco Polo Bridge incident became the trigger for Japan and China to enter all-out war. What is the Marco Polo Bridge incident? Does it have anything to do with Marco Polo? Maybe. Maybe they played a little game. Little Marco Polo game. We'll get there, Yukishi is cooking. Somebody let him stop cooking. Because he's burning. He's burning the food. And we need to get him out of the kitchen. Marco Polo went to China, and I guess they named a bridge after— I thought you were telling me something real for a second. Okay. After that, there were bitter struggles in the Nanmonhan incident. Japan greatly revised their Soviet strategy. They signed the Soviet-Japanese Neutrality Pact and secured their route for their southern advance. The Sino-Japanese War got worse and worse. If the Marco Polo Bridge incident hadn't happened, it's possible that history would have gone very differently. Maybe we would have ended up in a war with them anyway. However, if the South faction didn't get that chance, the military authorities would have kept restraining the Soviet Union. The Soviets would have had to divide their forces between East and West. And maybe Germany could have invaded Moscow. Then Japan could have gone to Siberia. Dude, what is this? Back and forth? Sorry, I itched my nose. You can barely see it. But, is this like domino effect happening? Hypothetical domino effect. It gained its Western name from its appearance in— oh! Okay. Marco Polo's record of his travels! That's interesting. Okay. Marco Polo's an explorer who went to China! Oh. Okay. Neat. Okay. And you doubted me. Yes, I did. I did. The map could have been very different today. Germany wouldn't necessarily have won the war if it had succeeded in taking Moscow. England was keeping its strength on the other side of the Dover Strait, after all. The United States was poised to enter the conflict. Besides, Napoleon once occupied Moscow. But in the end, he couldn't beat the winter and had to withdraw. It's one of those ifs, huh? The Axis might have won the war.
Yes, it's possible that the gunshot from the Marco Polo Bridge incident changed the tide of history.
Both sides have differing opinions on who fired the shot, right?
Oh, it's one of those things. Okay. According to the Japanese side, a Chinese soldier fired a shot at a Japanese soldier who got too close to the Chinese camp. However, the Chinese side claimed that the shot was a conspiracy invented by the Japanese military.
But the shot was fired, even though nobody knew who actually pulled the trigger, and it sparked the Sino-Japanese War.
Yes, that's what the history books say.
But, Koizumi-sensei?
Koizumi.
What does that have to do with my grandfather?
In the Marco Polo Bridge incident, a shot was fired at a unit that was training in the middle of the night. Everyone was summoned for a roll call. Are they saying they were there? Maybe? They were missing one soldier. The soldier came back later, and it was said he was sent as a messenger and got too close to the Chinese camp. By the way, did you know that soldier was from Hinamizawa? No. 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 Are they claiming that Hinamizawa was the cause of the Sino-Japanese War? Oh my god. That's actually insane. That is the most insane thing I think I've ever heard. The claim.
The Second Sino-Japanese War, actually,
Shut up. Eh? Really? When Takano-kun was talking about Hinamizawa syndrome, he said that the soldiers from Hinamizawa would suddenly fall into a deranged state. We realized that the soldier from the Marco Polo Bridge incident was in fact from Hinamizawa.
Then what about the first shot fired?
I don't know the truth, but I think it's possible that a soldier within the terminal stage of Hinamizawa syndrome fired the shot. That soldier was killed in the incident. As there was no record of it, nobody knows exactly how he died.
Japanese side claimed that the Chinese army had fired at them and negotiated with that in mind. Just a scant few days after the incident, Japan demanded an apology from the Chinese, and as a show of force, dispatched 3 divisions of reinforcements. Chinese side was, of course, opposed to that. The situation escalated at once.
Research into Hinamizawa syndrome continued. The higher-ups thought it would negatively influence the Japanese army's claims. So, in order to avoid the risk of traversing that political gray zone, they rejected Takano-kun's research.
So, because of that, they refused to even consider my grandfather's research long after the war ended too?
Yes, that's exactly it. War's over now, but there are still some conflicts there regarding historical recognition. Even if Takano-kun didn't mean for it to happen, his research into Hinamizawa syndrome became public, might cause a resurgence of quarrels over the long-ended war. Certain authorities were afraid of that, so made sure his research was ignored even after the war. I was long warned not to aid him in any way myself. You know, why don't you just remove the part where it's in this incident? If you just remove that part from it and still investigate it anyway, it should be fine, right? Just investigate it without connecting it to war. It shouldn't be that hard.
Takano tried to remain calm, but she couldn't stop herself from grimacing. She just found out the real reason why her grandfather's research had been ignored. It's because of secret maneuvers by political masterminds. Those masterminds feared it so much. Ironically, it meant they acknowledged the importance of his research. Takano was saddened and frustrated. No end by her grandfather's lonely life.
However, they're all dead now. I'm the only one who knows about this. Takano-kun was still alive. I was going to apologize to him and give him my unconditional support. But he's no longer around. So I'm apologizing to you and offering to give you my full support instead.
Are you sure? Wouldn't research into the Hinamizawa syndrome dredge up those same subjects again?
It's different now. Besides, research into the Hinamizawa syndrome may produce more than a mere local disease. Depending on your research, post-war Japan may gain a trump card that makes it a world power once more.
So the tides and times have changed again?
That's right. Fortunately, Takano-kun didn't live long enough to see that tide change. but he has you to continue his research. So as long as I'm alive, I'll give you my full support. Promise to help Takano-kun. Because of various things, I couldn't do anything. So I want to make up for that as long as I'm alive. I think that's the least I can do for the man who called me his best friend.
Uzumi-sensei? Thank you so much.
Oh, don't mention it. Glad I was able to tell you everything before I died. Anyway, till I'm gone, I'll make sure you get everything you need, okay? So if anything comes up, be sure to let me know. I'll do anything for you.
Takano couldn't imagine what kind of bond this old man and her grandfather had between them. Thanks to that bond, Takano was able to gain a powerful supporter. Tears welled up in Takano's eyes as she gave him an emotional look. In her mind, she was practically dancing at the promise of the old man's full support. The old man and Takano both bowed at the same time to show each other their appreciation. Once that was done, the old man became a little more serious. For that far too lengthy preamble, he finally said what he really wanted to tell her. So there you have it. This is what I wanted to say. The Hinamizawa syndrome has the potential power to make history, and even twist the fate of our country. So keep that in mind, and be careful with your research.
Alright. Okay, boss. Will do.
After the proprietor finished serving the food, she bowed and left. The room was very tastefully put together, reminding them of a tea ceremony room. While it was sparsely decorated, quite a bit of money had obviously gone into it. It's a very famous Japanese restaurant, where many high-up officials and other important people held secret meetings. Takano was there, accompanied by about 5 gentlemen. She was sitting slightly further away from the men. They were clearly in a much more important position than she was. One of the men, wearing an expensive double-breasted suit, told Takano not to be so nervous.
Please relax, Takano-san. What we read is very interesting to us. Can't believe this research was just sitting there for dozens of years.
It is surprising. I thought most of the research on BC weapons in the Japanese military conducted during the war failed to bear fruit, and nothing was left after the US military confiscated even the fundamental research.
I heard this research was barely being glanced at by the top brass. I see. So that's why nobody knew about it and GHQ didn't investigate it. In that sense, at least, it was truly fortunate. Interesting that Dr. Takano's research would be succeeded by a different Takano-san. I suppose that's fate. It's like the deceased using your body to complete his life's work.
Maybe that's true. I feel a mysterious connection to him too. Takano adored Takano Hifumi and called him grandfather, but she hadn't revealed that relationship to others. She realized it wouldn't be beneficial for people to think she was involving personal feelings in her continuing Dr. Takano's research. So publicly, she once had exchanges with Takano Hifumi, after his death discovered his research documents with his remains, and chose to carry it on. At least that's how the story went.
Well then, what do you think?
Oh wait, well then, what do you think?
The defense agency was very interested. According to Nakagawa-kun, the defense agency's Technical Research and Development Institute showed great interest. They offered to sponsor the research too.
Oh, that's wonderful! Congratulations, Takano-san! Thank you very much.
Here's what they said. There's a research council for the next generation deterrence being led by experts from several different ministries. One of those is called the Alphabet Project. Have you heard of it, Takano-san?
There was no way she would know about something like that. It was very possible for these nationalists to research something dangerous without citizens knowing about it. Society forms something like a web made of connections between people. People hold hands with other people who share the same ideas, and end up knitting a net. Of course, some nets are well known. There are some secret ones too. There's no way of guessing just how many men at this room were connected.
So true.
Society involving research into deterrent weapons for the next generation. The Alphabet Project. Those words, it was possible to imagine what that might entail. Deterrent weapons. They usually refer to nuclear technology. Weapons are normally used to destroy enemies. However, the general idea of deterrent weapons is very different. The assumption is that they won't actually be used against anyone. Nuclear weapons are largely used as a threat to prevent enemy invasion. Both the US and Soviets possess large stockpiles of nuclear arms, keeping each other in check. They will never actually use them, because if they did, it would be a nuclear war, and both countries would be destroyed. So they're like a legendary weapon you never draw. course, that last resort only works because both sides have nuclear weapons. One side lacks them, and they lose all military negotiation power. In other words, nations without nukes are powerless before nuclear-armed states. It can't be true. Japan abandoned nukes and still functions as a nation today. Or some people may be thinking, but they're wrong. Japan abandoned nukes, but lies under the nuclear umbrella by allying itself with America. Ah, okay. So by Japan and America going together, America gets anime and Japan gets nukes, so both are happy. Right? That's how this works? It means that the nation functions thanks to America's nukes. However, that also means we must resign ourselves to forever being a vassal of America. In order for Japan to escape that and become a powerful nation equal to America, it must possess its own deterrence arms and step out of that nuclear umbrella. Society must have been put together by experts who believe in that ideal. Given that, even the name Alphabet Project makes sense. Nuclear weapons are weapons of mass destruction. However, weapons of mass destruction aren't always nuclear. They also include biological weapons and chemical weapons. Atomic, biological, chemical. The initials of these three words make up ABC. That's why weapons of mass destruction are sometimes called ABC weapons. I won't go into weapons of mass destruction that don't belong to those three categories. Oh my god, that's just him saying he could go on and on about weapons of mass destruction. Oh. ABC, alphabet. In other words, Alphabet Project must be a code for research into weapons of mass destruction. As it happened, his guess of Takano's was correct. By rights, Japan should possess nuclear arms. We established ourselves as a peace-loving nation after the war, and after our vast international contributions, we've been recognized as a permanent member of the UN. Until we possess nuclear arms, we won't be recognized as a proper nation. That is the long-held desire of post-war Japan. Exactly. However, realistically, thanks to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, major nations hold a monopoly on nukes. Worse, our domestic public opinion is growing allergic to nukes, so foreign and domestic pressures to make implementing them impossible. Biological and chemical weapons are sometimes known as poor man's nuke. Oh, okay. The poor man's nuke. Small countries that can't own nuclear weapons have already started research into that kind of weaponry. Haha, Takano-san, please don't misunderstand us, okay? The purpose of our research isn't to obtain a biological weapon. Instead, our goal is to prevent such weapons from coming into Japan from other countries. So this research is into self-defense. I want you to understand that. Yes, I'm aware of that. Takano hated this Japanese tendency to make excuses. Japanese tendency? So she's not Japanese, or... She didn't let it show on her face. No matter what they said, they already saw the value in using this research toward biological weaponry. However, in truth, that was just an excuse as well. They actually wanted to research biological weapons. Then it would be much faster to research diseases like smallpox and anthrax instead of an unidentified disease like Hinamizawa syndrome. So it wasn't actually correct to say that the defense agency was interested in it as a biological weapon. In other words, Takano needed a powerful sponsor who could back her up with funding, personnel, and a facility to conduct her research. So she used her connections and turned to the old men behind the government and economy, reaching out to each of them, getting them to forcibly pull funding out of the defense agency under the excuse of its application towards biological weaponry. That was the truth. Therefore, her project wasn't officially recognized by the defense agency. To be exact, the people who secretly controlled the defense agency were the ones who knew about it. These masterminds diverted the funding from the defense agency to the Alphabet Project, and they pushed for Takano's research to be a part of it. Takano gets her funding, the influencers get to drain public funds through kickbacks. Considering that, it was doubtful this project was genuinely about researching the next generation of deterrence arms. It's probably just an excuse for the masterminds to funnel money into their own pockets. Well, those complicated matters didn't matter to Takano. Whatever those old men and influencers were planning wasn't her business. As long as she could get the funding for her research, that was enough. Either way, Takano had found her sponsor. One of the biggest organizations around, too. This had always been her grandfather's dream. Takano was trying to stay calm. She was about to jump up and down in excitement. just finished a campaign of Dead Center. I've never heard of that game before. But, congrats. I knew you could do it. We're knee-deep into, war history and politics and nuclear weapons and other things. Yeah. Takano lore, yes. Knee-deep in Takano lore. Nakagawa-kun says that once the research gets underway, he doesn't mind buying it out. Although it's still incomplete, he definitely sees potential in it. You're absolutely right. This research is only halfway complete. Sufficient funding, facilities, and personnel will be indispensable. About that, here's where the negotiations start, but apparently they wish to take on this research in its entirety. Feel bad saying this, but they think the burden is too much for you to bear alone. Hearing that put quite the damper on Takano's ecstasy. I'm not trying to make any money off this. I'm working as a research purely out of intellectual curiosity. What I need is a sponsor. What they seek are results. That was the relationship I had hoped to establish. Takano realized she was talking rather breathlessly, so she tried to calm herself down. Either way, they'd be backing the research. Considering they're hoping for results that merit the budget, they probably feel that Takano was still too young to handle it. I know. You're probably working on this a long time, and you don't want anyone to just grab it from you, right? I totally understand that. Of course, we've already informed them. But here's the compromise we came up with. First, we'll start your research as an offshoot of the Alphabet Project. Once you have the board of directors' approval, you'll be given official funding. We'll have you participate in the project as an associate researcher, and you'll take part in the research in that way. If she wanted their funding, she'd have to fall under their authority, of course. So far, she had no objections. However, the Research Society has listed a few conditions in exchange for funding this project. First, as it was just mentioned, is to entrust the position of lead researcher to an individual that's skilled and talented in this field of research. I hate to interject, but who would be more knowledgeable about this than me, other than the late Dr. Takano, of course? Now, please calm down, Miss Takano. Takano-san, I understand how you feel. Still, how is this any different from selling my research to this individual? This isn't what we discussed at all. Calm down, Takano-san. Those cunning old men didn't miss sight of the faint leak of anger that crossed Takano's expression. He gave evasive laughs, as if remarking how immature she still was, if she let her emotions show over such a little thing. However, they weren't laughing to look down on Takano. On the contrary, they were laughing to tell her to wait till the end. Of course, we'll make sure you get your way. Koizumi-sensei told me to take good care of you. You think I would just ignore you after he told me that? Don't worry. Please let me work things out. I'll make sure you'll be happy. What do you mean? You see, I get to select the person in charge. Wahahaha! Everyone chortled except Takano. For a moment, she joined in. In other words, he meant that he would find just the right person. The defense agency had suggested finding an expert to lead the project because they didn't feel comfortable with just Takano. However, Takano's sponsor was the one tasked to find such a person. In that moment, Takano realized it. Ah, how wonderful it is to have such a powerful backer. Let me work it out. I'll find some candidates for you. All you have to do is pick the one you think would be most suitable. Takano felt better after hearing that. While she wouldn't be the official head of the project, she would be up leading it from the shadows. Of course, she wasn't an expert per se. Having a partner would actually be beneficial. Give me some time to talk to the other end. Make sure you're happy with the outcome. Please just be patient for a while.
Thank you for the hydration!
Do a stretch as well, and then hydrate. Let's see, does this... It's so weird that you can see it now, or like see a version of it. That's insane. New avatar? Kind of, yeah. It's in progress. But it works pretty alright for now. Okay. VampyTK. Yeah, VampyTK. I understand. Thank you for everything. Oh, by the way, it's not just the defense agency. Nagata-kun from the Ministry of Health and Welfare is willing to help you too.
Introduced me to Ito-kun from the National Institute of Infectious Diseases. He's willing to help you with the equipment and other technology.
Really? Thank you so much.
Wahaha! This is a national project, isn't it? Congratulations, Takano-san. This is all because of your effort and the deceased Dr. Takano's hard work.
Oh no, this is all because of Dr. Takano. I haven't done anything yet.
Yet. The crimes she will commit. Unmeasurable. Haha, being humble is a good virtue. Just like Koizumi-sensei told me, you truly are a nice person, aren't you? No wonder he adores you. Anyway, I wanted you to join the defense agency. Luckily, you have a doctor's license, right? We'll secure your position as a medical officer of the TRDI.
You mean I'll be a public servant? I wasn't expecting that.
All the organizations that are involved with the Alphabet Project are public institutions. The SDF is actually interested in this research as well. They're making strong requests to dispatch some of their personnel too. So depending on the circumstances, you may be treated as an SDF member.
Well, just think of those matters as officials squabbling over jurisdiction.
So to stand above all those officials, you'll need your own official position. No matter what, we'll make you happy, so please don't worry about anything.
I understand. I'll let you work things out. But knowing Dr. Takano's research was once rejected by the old Japanese military, it's hard to believe that the Self-Defense Force is interested in it now.
Well, that couldn't be stopped. The war situation worsening, the Japanese military sought something with immediate effect, something that could turn the war around. I don't think they were looking down on Dr. Takano's research. That wasn't true, of course. Takano already heard that confession from the old man.
She exhaled. To her, it was like the meeting in front of her was happening somewhere far away. She had longed for this day to come, and worked so hard to reach it. Finally, her grandfather and his research were gaining recognition. This was the day she had dreamed of. So she was frightened, just imagining that it might be an actual dream. True joy can't be felt all at once. Oftentimes, it's a delayed reaction. Takano thought that must be exactly what she was feeling.
I imagine you'll probably be given a field officer's rank. Since you'll be second in command, you'll likely be a major.
That's wonderful. Major Takano, huh? My, I'm a little jealous.
Oh, well, I'm a little jealous. As a man, I wish I had a rank like that. Boy, oh boy, Major Takano, huh? Mm-hmm.
Major? What does that signify?
Well, it's reasonably high in the rank system of the Self-Defense Forces. Like a sub-manager at a company, I guess. That'll be your rank once the project gets underway. The equivalent to a lieutenant commander in the old Japanese army. What a coincidence. Dr. Takano was also a lieutenant commander in the old military.
Wow. Takano remembered suddenly. They were right. Grandfather had been a lieutenant commander in the Japanese army. Military. Everything she had done until today was so she could continue her grandfather's research. Now everything had fallen into place. She had even been granted the same rank as her grandfather. She had always believed that succeeding his research would be proof that they had a bond tighter than blood. And now she would even be the same rank as him. This is fate, Takano thought. Maybe this is even a message from Grandpa? Yes, it must have been a shout of encouragement from heaven. It was proof she had inherited not only his research, but his will as well. Takano couldn't help but feel a sense of destiny for attaining the rank of major. Grandpa, I'm finally here. Nobody else could hear her say that, but her grandfather in heaven could. What Takano believed. She had only come so far. Still a lot of things to do for this research to be recognized as a great work. Otherwise, her grandfather won't become a god. She wouldn't become one either. You must become a god. That was in her grandfather's will. I was unable to do so. That line preceded it. It was her grandfather's dying wish. Her grandfather entrusted it to her. All of his research. A god can't be physically brought back to life. A god is made in the hearts of the people who remain alive. Her grandfather will live on in her heart. His exploits will be known to many, and all his scholars will fight to read his documents, to steal them from each other. They will learn about Hifumi Takano, who began his research during the war. They will know that nobody understood him, that he ended up devoting his lonely life to his research. And finally, it will extol his grand achievement. But how does this have anything to do with... Oh! Rika's situation. I don't know if you noticed the achievement. The achievement I just got, the image was... Yeah. Now we know Takano's motivation! Ugh. I guess. Alright. Do I get any tips? Why no tips? Why do I get no tips? I guess tips don't exist anymore. This is the last answer arc. We don't have anything to solve. We don't have... I can't believe somebody's actually using this. Okay. Somebody redeemed points for me to be forcibly say something against my will. Great! I fully support and endorse Mio Takano's ideology and actions. Yep. Yeah, let's just, really? Oh my god. I won't state my opinion on Takano until the end. Okay. Alright. Do I keep going? I probably should. It's just, I never know how long these will end up being. You know? Nah, I'll stop here. I stop here. It's a weird freaking direction this chapter is taking, I'll say that. It's a weird freaking direction. But I say keep going.
Well, my throat hurts. Yeah, my throat hurts. And I have school tomorrow.
Where I'm gonna learn about neuroscience and biological weapons and World War II. So I need to know those things to progress in this chapter. I need to know more. Frontal lobe parasites, because those definitely exist. Definitely. Thank you guys for joining me on the Higurashi journey, though. I'm definitely gonna be streaming more of this, of course. What else? I'm gonna finish this chapter of Higurashi. Then we'll go back to Fate. So, no more Fate until we finish this.
'Cause we're finishing it.
We are. Yep. That's it.
Bye, guys.
Have a good day or have a good bye. Bye-bye.